Welcome to Ridiculously Happy Peoplecast. I'm Sophia Lemon, and today I am recording with Nikki Yo. How are you, Nikki?
I'm doing good, Sophia. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
That's
I think
good.
I sound like really dorky when I introduce the podcast, and this is actually what it sounds like in my head. Like whenever I've practiced, I've been like, yep, I sound like a minion, kind of. Like, anyway.
That's too funny. I love that.
What's new?
Awesome. Last night, I kind of last minute ended up in Barrie helping my mom unpack their new place. Kitchen and living room was like their priority because the movers just kind of deposited everything. As they do, right? Like it's a significant downsize for them. So they've got a lot of stuff. And she was like, no, I did all kinds of purging before we packed. And I'm like, I believe it, but you still need to do some more. So she was a little bit overwhelmed, which that makes sense. Moving 20 years into a smaller place is a lot. Yeah. So I picked up my sister on the way and we went over and kind of had, our goal was to have kitchen and living room like done because it's like all open, so kitchen, living, dining all open. Like you need to be able to use the kitchen and cool your jets and watch some TV and relax and all that. So we were there, got there about 5:30. We got started, and 9:15 we like sat back with a glass of wine and we're like, we did it. So that was unexpected, but it worked out really well. So that was awesome.
I would have been so tired.
Yeah. And I had to like drive back to Midland. Like, oh, shoot. Yeah. Came home, went right to bed, and then dreamed about unpacking boxes for the rest of the night.
Oh, yeah. I love it when that happens.
Yeah, it's the best.
When you're doing something or preparing for something and you're thinking about it so much that like that night you end up having dreams about it. I still have nightmares about like college and university. That I've like skipped the entire thing, and now I have an exam or a paper due, and I don't know anything about it. Not fun. But how are your parents liking the new place?
They're good. I think my dad's kind of more like excited, and it makes sense and all that, and my mom's a little bit more just feeling sad and nostalgic. But yeah, it's an adjustment.
Gets to make all new memories with all the grandkids.
Exactly. That's what we've all been saying. We're like, this is great. This will be a good thing. Don't have to go up and down 3 flights of stairs all day long. It's okay.
That would be nice.
Yeah, right? No stairs.
I bet you every time you guys say these positive things, she's probably like, well, thanks, but still.
Still, yeah, literally. That's exactly it.
Oh, man. Well, I told you I had another update from that tournament that I played in. And we're recording this last weekend because we're recording a whole whack of episodes all at once. So we finished playing Saturday afternoon, and I was walking back to my car, and this handsome man comes walking by me and looks at me, and I look at him, and he goes, hi. And I go, hi. And he says, nice to see you. And I'm thinking, who is this? So I didn't have a clue who this person was. And I'm like,
Don't
okay.
you just love that?
Nice to see you too. And just, well, alrighty then. And so I start talking to my friend, who I do know who that person is. And then I hear behind me, Soph. And I turn around. And I see the name on the back of this person's jersey, and it says a lemon. And I'm like, oh. And the person with this person, who I temporarily did not know, yells at me. He's like, are you two related? And at this point, I had figured out that this was my cousin. When I saw the name Lemon on the back of his jersey. So I just go, no, he wishes. And I'm like, okay. So I go and get in my car and ended up messaging him. And I'm like, what, did you not recognize me or something? And so I got to watch some of his ball games on the weekend, which was super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is cool. That's so funny.
And we were talking a little bit because I was like, oh, I'll come and watch your games tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, okay. Well, I've been pitching and I haven't been pitching very well. And I don't think I'm going to pitch tomorrow because I don't. And I'm like, oh, you'll be fine. Tomorrow's a new day. It's all right. And he's, I don't think I'm going to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, just don't drink too much tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
He stopped talking to me. I said, don't drink too much tonight, and he stopped talking to me. So the next day, I show up at his game, and they're on the diamond, and then he comes off the diamond, he comes walking over to me, he's like, hey, Soph. He's like, I'm not feeling well.
I drank too much.
I'm like, did you drink too much? He's like, yeah.
Yeah. It's too good.
It was really funny. But yeah, it was cool.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that is cool.
So I got to
nice little impromptu reunion. Nice.
Yeah, it was nice. So I just wrapped up recording the episode prior to this one when people are listening to it on Tough Conversations, which I had with Shayna Beeksma. And you two have some similarities where you are both mom bosses. And you both have very young children. And I never really thought about it before, but when I was recording with her, she's introducing herself and saying how she and her husband, really thought about how they want to live their lives. And in 2021, made it a reality. Like, they were living in Hamilton, left Hamilton, came up to the Owen Sound area, got a house in the country, and that's where they work. So she's a lawyer, and she works online, basically. So she's remote. She doesn't have to see people in person necessarily.
Awesome.
And I was like, this sounds a lot like Nikki. Sort of a similar situation.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we're going to get into in this episode. We're going to talk about family and priority management.
Yep.
And maybe people remember that word priority, which we talked about earlier in the season. And I was reading the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I have his name down now.
Awesome.
And there will be a link to his book in the show notes. But in that book, the one thing that stood out to me the most is he says that priority, the term, for the longest time was singular, priority. And it only became priorities, plural, in reasonably recent history. Like within the last 100 years, I would have to read the book to double check, be sure. But it's interesting because I think if you ask the vast majority of people what their number one priority was, they would probably say their family. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I work so hard for my family. And that's where this episode comes in because, working 60 to 80 hours a week for your family, your number one priority, just seems so out of whack to me.
Yeah.
Like you're going to spend all of your time
100%.
away from your family because your family is your number one priority. It's just, it blows my mind.
Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow.
So because I just gave a little overview of, Shayna making that conscious decision to live life differently and like create the life that she wanted to live. I'm going to, get into some other stuff later in the episode, but would love to hear what your experience was because I don't know, how long did you think about starting your own business and being able to control how you live your life before you actually did it? Because I know you were like going on interviews and everything for jobs outside of the house. So tell us a little bit about that.
I don't think I really thought about it for that long, to be honest. Like, it's one of those things I remember even long, like way pre-COVID, pre-having kids. I was at a job that I just hated, and I had this moment of like, should I or shouldn't quit? And it was I cannot wrap my head around being miserable for the next 40 years. So I quit my job. I took like 5 weeks off at this point, had lined up another job, but like took a breather to just like cool my jets and like feel not miserable for a little while, and then started back at this other job, that was fine. And that is what carried me in through my mat leave. But when the pandemic hit and I was on leave having my daughter, I always knew that I wanted to be able to be home until my kids went to school, and that my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and that additional one-on-one time that we had, and there was a bunch of us, so like there wasn't a lot of time, you know, like she was spread thin for sure. But that time that she was able to give was huge, like volunteering at the school and going on field trips and things like that, and just having her there. And it was always something that I wanted, and my husband was the flip side. His mom always worked when they were young, and so we had very different perspectives on what was going to happen. And when the pandemic hit, he just couldn't have an argument anymore, because like, yeah, you didn't have a choice. So for me, it was maybe a few months, and I remember having this conversation with my sister, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm going on these interviews. They're awful. I'm going to take a job that makes me miserable, that barely pays my bills. Then we're going to look at the additional cost of daycare. And now I'm miserable at a job, working 40 hours a week on paper, but plus my commute and the expectation that you stay late to finish your work. So maybe we're looking more at the 50 to 60 mark. And I'm going to come home, see my kid for an hour, put her to bed, and go back to a job that I can't stay in the next day. And it's like, I cannot do that. Like, I am not willing to do that. But we're a 2-income family. Like most families are these days.
These days, yeah.
Like, this isn't, 50, 60 years ago where you could be a single income family and have a full-time stay-at-home parent and not miss a beat. It's just not realistic anymore. So at the time, my sister had already since launched her branding business and was doing it remotely, working for herself. And she had said to me, she's like, I'm seeing all of these calls for virtual assistants. And we like kind of sat down and we talked about it. She's like, and I'm like, well, this is what I do in my other jobs. Like, I do appointment settings. I do all the email. I do calendars. I do policy and procedure guides. I've done training. I've done onboarding. And like all of these things are all things that I have done in previous life jobs. Yeah. And it was a bit of a light bulb moment. So my sister is very much that person that's like, once you have an idea, she's like, okay, so now we're going to do it. Like, we're not sitting on this. We're not going to like hum and haw, like, all right, you're going to be a virtual assistant. This makes sense for you. This makes sense for your family. Like, let's make this happen so that you can have a job. And I was like, oh, okay. So while we were like talking about it, I sat down with my husband and I was like, listen, like, Angie feels very strongly that this is a realistic option. She's dealing with this in her current line of work. She's working with these people. She's seeing how in demand this kind of job is, especially like if the pandemic showed us anything, it's that you can work from anywhere. And that idea of having to have someone physically in your office 8 hours a day, clocking in, clocking out, was no longer necessary. So we talked about it, and I was like, can we do 6 months? Like, my mat leave ended end of May 2021. So I was like, can we ride through 6 months? And if it's not working, I will go get a job. And if it's working, then like, hurrah, like we did it, right? And so before the 6 months was up, I had already met my my pre-COVID salary, like my monthly income. So I was like, well, this is obviously working. So it sucks to be you. Like, but no, he was super supportive, which is great. And so it kind of flew from there. It was around the same time that I joined BNI, which was great. And I had some fantastic referrals from there, which helped to build my client base. And I still work with, you and 2 other clients that I met through BNI, which is awesome. Another client I have through a different networking group that I was in locally. So yeah, it was like a light bulb moment that it just fit perfectly, that I have all these skills. I've always worked in an office. So these transferable skills for me that are second nature, just built into my DNA kind of thing. Not everyone else has this is how I should organize, and this is how I should set up my templates, and this is how I should coordinate my calendar. Like, not everybody goes there in that direction. So that I can come into someone's office or remote office and put those into place while still keeping the things that I want for myself is great. I'm still working a full-time job, but I'm doing it with flex hours that suit my schedule, that suit my needs, that suit my family's schedule and needs. And I'm still making, well, now more than the income that I had and that I would have had I taken one of those awful, miserable jobs where I was never home. So.
And you would have no time to do anything.
And I would have no time.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't understand how, especially parents, have side hustles. Even if you're working full-time hours, like how? What do you like? I sleep
You're
outside
not
of that, so
yeah. That's exactly it. Like, it's very hard to try and squeeze time from anywhere. And like I've mentioned before, and my husband travels a lot for work, and often his work site, like, he's a welder, so his work sites can be anywhere in Ontario, depending on where their job is. So he does not have the ability to be the flexible parent. He can't call it a site for a doctor's appointment. He can't stop what he's doing and go pick up milk at the grocery store. Like, it just, it's not realistic. It's not feasible. So I kind of didn't, like, I don't have a choice in that. This, like it sounds bad, but like, I love that I can do this, but we need to have a flexible parent in our home. We need the one person to be able to take on the awkward timings and the errands and the doctor's appointments. And if he were to be calling out of work every day with those, then he would be out of the job. Whereas I can build that into my schedule and I don't miss a beat.
Well, you keep saying that, you need to be able to be the flexible parent because he doesn't have the option. When in reality, I bet on this side of things, you're probably like, haha, I got the better deal.
We were having a conversation the other night and I was like, I don't know if I could ever go back to work, like physically working in an office. I don't think I could ever, like, it would have to be a pretty sweet offer that made me second guess giving this up to go and work for someone else again. And he kind of started to chuckle and he was like, you could absolutely never do that again. He's like, the time that you get, he's like, the like freedom to just like close down your computer and be like, what is happening with my day? He's like, you can't do that in an office and people are bugging you all day long and they want to chit chat and you just want to get your stuff done. And like, he's like, no, this is the foreseeable future. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you agree because it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I really don't want to go back to it.
Because I don't want to do that. So
I can't believe
been too sweet for too long.
I cannot believe the amount of time I wasted when I was working in an office by just people stopping by my desk. And like, I didn't go and talk to people. Like, I sat at my desk, but people would stop at my desk and just talk to me. And it's not like if they were facing me, I could have like worked and like just fake listen to them.
Yeah.
But I had to turn around to talk to them. So yeah, just people talking to me. And then as we have discussed today, I would eat lunch and then I would be useless for like an hour because I'd be a zombie while my body digested food. But I see this sort of stuff all the time with what I do, and maybe you've caught a bit of a glimpse of it. It seems to come up when especially extended families are trying to schedule family photo sessions because it is nearly impossible to do that when you have like even 10 people. And if they have teenagers, good luck. It seems so challenging to find one day that will, like, in a 12-month period, one day that will work for everyone in the family between like work schedules and sports and, travel schedules. Like, it's ridiculous. And the funny thing is that the priority is never the family event. Like, they could be having a family reunion and that's not important enough. There are people who are not going to be there. They're going to show up late. It's so hard. Like, the whole family's getting together this weekend, but our nephew's not going to be there because he has a hockey tournament. Like,
Yeah.
work, sports, and everything else will always come first before, making time for a
Yep.
family thing, which I just
Yeah.
find so absurd when your number one priority is your family. And like,
Yeah.
if family is the most important thing to you, why is it the last thing you put in your calendar? Why do you put
Exactly.
everything else in? And then what are we teaching our kids when we're spending all of this time away from them, doing all the things that we need to do in order to pay for their braces and their hockey equipment and everything?
Yeah.
Like a lot of parents will say, well, I'm teaching them responsibility, which is fair enough because there's things that you
Yeah.
have to do in life, but your whole life is not one big giant responsibility.
Exactly.
And kids' thoughts are a lot more nuanced than dad has to go to work because we need to have money to keep the house. They also are like, well,
Where's my
dad's
dad?
never around. And
Yeah.
dad said he was going to be around, but then he wasn't around because his
Yep.
boss called him and said you have to stay late
Yeah.
or whatever. Or he's on his phone answering emails or
Yep.
texting or social mediaing or whatever.
Yep.
How is it that work and bosses and errands and emails and texts and social media come
It's the
before
priority.
the number
Yeah.
one most important thing in your life? And then quality time is the least important thing because,
Yeah.
and honestly, would you rather be working on your phone or hang out with your kids? So
Kind of like
if
what
you
it
would,
comes down to.
yeah, if you would rather hang out with your kids, why are you working?
Yeah.
Like,
We have like a rule, like when my husband gets home, he'll have to do some follow up after the site when he gets home. Like, okay, this got done, that's set up for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we have like he's got 30 to 60 minutes. And like mine's the same. Like I generally like when I wrap out my day, like I turn off my notifications on any work related items on my phone. My computer gets
good,
closed.
because I send you messages.
Yeah, but you send them to me and you say, don't read until tomorrow. And that's what it opens with. So if I do see it, I'm like, oh, okay, not a priority. And I appreciate that. This is not urgent. You can read this tomorrow, but it's in my head right now. And I'm totally cool with that. That is perfect.
Okay, good.
But for everything else, I turn those off. And because generally, too, I'll do work in the evenings once the kids are in bed. So then I've got like a buffer time. That's when he can go and if he wants to watch baseball or have a workout or whatever, like I'm going to work for an hour. You're going to do what you want to do for an hour. But that time when he gets home, once he's been able to wrap up anything from being on site, communicate with anybody he needs to, like, there's no more. Like, you're done. We're both done with work until once the kids are in bed. And then if we need to do anything, we'll do it then. Like, you can do your timesheets. I can prep my emails for the morning, whatever. And then we have time together, like, before we go to bed, which is nice, too, to have time without the kids. Because otherwise, like, I could spend, like you said before, like you can spend 24 hours in a day working. I can totally do that. I have tons of stuff that I could just sit and keep going. But then that completely defeats the purpose of why I'm working from home with a flexible schedule to be here for my kids and be present with my kids and be present with my husband and be able to do all those things that I don't want to just squeeze into a Saturday morning.
And we have totally screwed up, I think, with how we have set up our society, like just completely. Because we are not, and people might argue with me about this, but we are not set up to prioritize family. We just aren't.
Not at all. Not at all.
We need to make money for everything. Absolutely everything that you want to do right now. If you like go outside of your house is going to cost you money unless you're planning on walking everywhere and growing your own food. But you're still going to have to buy the vegetables to put in the ground, right? So
and pay for the water and everything else.
Exactly. So we have to make money for absolutely everything. And then we spend most of our days, most weeks working on making money. And we send our kids to schools for most days of most weeks to learn how to make money.
Yep.
I find that so frustrating because money is not a real thing. And this is going to be just like totally kind of unrelated to what we're talking about. Maybe a little bit apocalyptic, But if there was some sort of natural disaster, money wouldn't matter anymore.
No.
You know, some sort of natural disaster that knocks out all the internet and the banks and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, because
Money will do us no good.
No,
yeah.
we'll go back to bartering and it'll be fine.
Yeah. With vegetables and
and livestock and
yeah. And by the way, I am. Sorry, a motorcycle went by.
That's okay.
By the way, I am not an expert in any of this. Like, I have already described in different episodes that I could work all the time, like you have said. Like,
yeah.
And I find the stuff that I work on, like, I like working on it. So that complicates
like
things even further. Yeah. Like, yes, I want to make graphics for stuff.
Yeah,
of course I still.
That is so funny.
Yeah, certainly does not help me spend time with my family. But
yeah,
it's holy moly, is it ever? I don't know. I think a pandemic that,
Yep.
We have families because that's what you do, and you love your kids, but you can't spend time with them.
Because you have to work. It sucks, I think. I think it's sucky.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Definitely
For lack
sucky.
of a better word, it sucks. No, it's... Sorry, go ahead.
Does your husband now ever go like, oh, I want to work from home? Like, this seems great.
We have these conversations where he's like, if I could work from home and still make that kind of, like, make that income, I would. But I'm like, well, we've got a big garage. I guess you could be a custom decorative welder, but yeah, that's a different conversation. But yeah, no, I think and like, especially since having Addison, our second, he recognizes the importance of it so much more. Like, and he made a comment to me right after we had her, that because we were talking, like, Evelyn went into daycare for a short stint for about 3 days a week last fall, and that lasted for about 10 weeks, and then the daycare closed, and I've yet to find a new one. So thank you, waitlist. So we've been rolling with the punches ever since. But he made a comment to me that after seeing everything that went with me being home 100% mat leave home with Evelyn, it was that if he couldn't be home to see the milestones and watch them grow, at least I could be. And then I was right there taking the pictures and the videos. And so it was like, he might have missed the first steps, but he still got to see them and that kind of thing. So I'm like, look, aren't you so sweet?
That is so cute and so sad at the same time.
I know, right? But it's one of those, like, both of my kids, neither of them were walking by 12 months. They're late walkers, which is fine. But mat leave ends at 12 months. So that means they're in daycare and I'm missing first steps and I'm missing first words and I'm missing new foods and all of these things. So whenever there's something new going on and the phone is at the ready and ready to capture them in case it happens while he's at work, which with Evelyn it did. So he still got to see it in almost real time, because I'm immediately sending him all these pictures and stuff. Yeah. But it's nice that if we can't both do it, at least one of us can do it.
That's really awesome that he recognizes that.
Super sweet.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you guys set limits with, like, work stuff at home. I mean, I'm sure you're happy with it too, but... Yeah. Oh man, like, personally, I find it so difficult to put work away because it's like we don't have the kids all the time with us. So like, there's always opportunity to like do other stuff. But for me, it's turning into I need to not be working all the time because I'm driving myself insane. Yeah. Like working from like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 and then having shoots in the evening or ball and that's all week through the weekend. That's too much. Yeah. So
that's a lot.
It's exhausting. So I'm needing to set boundaries for sure to not be working on my phone, answering emails, all that fun stuff. I've written down a bunch of ideas to maybe in questions that people can ask themselves, like maybe help, get closer to that work-life balance thing, but mostly to figure out what your priorities are and focus on that instead of just working all of the
Mhm.
time. Was there
Yes.
anything else that you wanted to add before we get into that?
No, I don't think so.
Cool.
Let's talk about some tips.
Cool. So just to start things off, I have a few questions that people can ask themselves. Like, who would you be if you worked less?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, what's the difference for you between, like, you working full time and you, well, working full time, but at home?
yeah.
Like you,
Yeah.
Nikki, what's different for you?
Yeah, for me, it's like I have more patience, I think. I'm able to I think it's nice having for me a separate office space so I can like just close that door and be like, I'm not going in there today.
Yeah.
Not having to commute, that is huge. Like even like where I was working in Aurelia and then in Barrie. So from Midland, 45 minutes each way. So not having to do that twice a day in terrible winter weather and feel like if I don't show up to work, then I don't have a job the next day. Like that feeling of not being valued by the people that I worked for or worked with. I don't have that currently because I get to choose who I work with, which is wonderful. I work very hard internally to recognize the privilege that I have, that I get to be a stay-at-home mom and also bring a full-time income to my family, which is a big deal and it's not something that everyone is fortunate enough to be able to do. So while it can be stressful at times, ultimately it's in the grand scheme of things, it's significantly less stressful than going to work for someone else, making less money than I know I'm worth and should be paid for, and what my other coworkers and colleagues are being paid for. Being able to set that scale myself is huge too. Like it's the benefits far outweigh
Obviously.
working like for myself than working full time for someone else. Like sitting in a cubicle for 8-9 hours a day, every day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You were mentioning too the commute. And I remember listening to CBC years ago when they were talking about how people's stress levels will immediately start to rise when they're driving just from being stuck in traffic. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, oh my goodness. People say this to me all the time when they come up from Toronto and they come to like the Collingwood area and they hire me for family portraits. And I show up and I don't know why this happens, but every single time they're like, so how long was your drive to get here? And I'm like, about an hour. It's so weird. Why is that the question that they ask? But anyway, and I'm like, it's about an hour. And they're like, oh my goodness, that's such a long drive. And I have to go like, if I drive an hour in any direction here, I'm in a completely different community. So where I live, if I drive an hour west, I'm in Port Elgin. If I drive an hour east, I'm in Collingwood. If I drive an hour south, I'm in the middle of nowhere. But like they're all pretty drives. I can do like
they're relaxing.
I can drive pretty
they're
fast.
Concession roads. They're exactly.
I don't get stuck in traffic, or if I do, it's at the light in Thornbury, and I'm stuck there for maybe 10 minutes. Yeah. And once you're through it, it's like, it's over. Oh, I'm driving at a good speed now. We're good, you know? But like driving through Toronto, I have said this before, the last time I was driving through Toronto, I got stuck in between two sets of lights.
Yeah.
In between two sets of traffic lights for an hour and a half.
I believe it.
That's longer than my drive from home to Collingwood.
That was always, so I went to university in Toronto and I was born in Toronto. So Barrie, been back and forth in. So after university, when I moved back to Barrie, I remember it feeling like such an adjustment, like anywhere, oh, I have to drive 30 minutes to go here. And like my friends would be complaining about this. And I'm like, I would ride the subway for an hour and a half just to go to school. Like, I don't know what you're complaining about. Like, you're driving comfortably. Like, you'll be fine. It's okay. It's a completely different concept.
Yeah, I am fine with the driving, but I would like to avoid the highways as much as possible because other people's driving makes me nervous.
Not so good. Yeah, 100%.
the commute part, like that's, and a lot of people these days, because people are moving out of the city but still working in the city, then you have at least an hour drive, and then add traffic onto that because you're probably driving during rush hour. You could have 4 hours of driving in a day. That's insane. 4 hours of driving
on top
every day.
Of your work day. Yeah.
That's nuts. That's crazy. Yeah. Just add several more hours a week that you're not spending with your family because it's more important that you work in the city.
Yeah. I know.
I'm glad that COVID made, offices, businesses realize that people could work from home and be productive because holy moly. Okay, so if you were not working in an office in the city and commuting for 4 hours every day, what would you be doing? So just a question for people to ask themselves. What would you be doing if you were not working all of that time? And I suspect a lot of people will be like, I don't know.
Don't know.
I think it's something a lot of retirees experience as well. Like my parents.
What do I do now? Yeah.
They both retired at about the same time, and they're doing about the same amount of work that they were doing before, which I get is like good for your brain health and everything.
Yeah.
This is not a negative comment about my parents, but oh man, there's probably a lot of retirees who retire and go, I am bored.
My dad went through that. He was like, I don't know if I can retire because what am I going to do? And my father-in-law is the same way. Like he's coming up to retirement age and he's like, he barely even takes his vacation because it's like, I don't know what to do with my time. I go to work. It's fine. Like he'll take 2 weeks off and end up working a week and a half of those 2 weeks. So like it's, but when you've spent 45 years doing the exact same thing, then what do you do next? And for a lot of people, their hobbies have been built around that job. So they don't feel like they have the time because they never did. It's crazy.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I have an option for you to present to him.
Okay.
You should say, if you're taking a vacation and you don't know what to do, or you're retiring and you don't know what to do, you could babysit.
You're so funny.
Just swing by and pick them up and
pick up the kids,
take them to the park, and as soon as they start screaming, just bring them home.
Yep. Enjoy those 10 beautiful minutes.
That might be true, but I'm sure you'd have fun.
Yeah.
So if you're asking yourself now what you would do if you were not working full time and you have no idea, now might be a good time to start thinking about what might be interesting for you to do. Like, do you have hobbies? Are there things that you could do with your kids? It's interesting in BNI, so the networking organization that I am and you were a part of. I do consult with a chapter in the region, and one of their members, their charitable fundraising member, she has started this charity. It's called Mother Daughter Empower, and she started it with her daughter, and now this is what she does full time. So she runs this charity with her daughter, who's like, I'm not sure. Young. Teenager, like 12, 13. Probably going to invite her onto the show at some point just to talk about, teenage girls and self-esteem and all of that delightful stuff. But she started a charity that she runs with her daughter, and good for her. Is that not like she's doing something that she's passionate about, and she gets to do it with her daughter, and help
people. Yeah. That's amazing.
It's working. So think about what you would do if you could.
Yeah. If
you had the time for it. If you were not working 80 hours a week, which is insane.
It's outrageous.
How about, can you take an extra day off every week? Like, could you have 3 days off a week instead of 2? Yeah. And a good book to read on that is definitely like The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. I'll put the link in the show notes, because he actually gives practical advice for how to get to that point. So
awesome.
How are you going to do less work?
Yeah. That's awesome.
One of the things that he mentions, and this is the next part, is can you get more done by saying no to unnecessary meetings? I don't experience this too much these days, although you've probably seen my emails to people periodically about, no, I'm not going to do a meeting. Can you just email me your questions? But in offices, I gather a lot of businesses will have very unnecessary meetings to talk about nothing and to get nothing done. So are you doing that? Can you say, no, I'll be more productive, I'll be more useful to you if I'm not going to this meeting and instead just getting the Cole's notes and working away for the rest of the afternoon? If you did that, could you get rid of one day of work a week? Like, if you didn't go to these meetings, would it add up to a full day of work, do you think? Interesting how that starts to happen. This one you kind of mentioned earlier, setting a time to check your phone and then turning it off, or turning off notifications, or turning on your do not disturb. Getting rid of all the notifications. I find that I mostly have my phone not make sounds, because I find that the prospect of my phone dinging at me gives me anxiety.
Fair.
So I turn off all the sounds, and then my mother has a text sound, and Kevin has a text sound, and that's it. Oh,
nice. For the priority. I like that. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Mostly so I know who it is that texted me. Like, okay, my mother texted me. So I know I don't have to respond to her immediately. She has recovered from that whole, why aren't you answering me thing, which she used to do when I was in college.
My dad is so bad for that.
No. That's cute.
He's getting better slowly.
He's recovering. Yeah. And then, after that time when you're checking your email and whatever, turn it off. Like, there's no need to spend all evening after you have been working all day on your phone answering emails.
No, absolutely not.
My mother used to get emails in the middle of the night from her boss. And she would feel a mild amount of pressure to respond to it, but she wouldn't because she was asleep. But she would
you wake up with that anxiety in your chest. Yeah.
And she'd be commenting on it the next day, like, what is she doing up in the middle of the night? Like, sending emails. And I'm going, that is completely inappropriate.
Yeah. The main reason I started turning off any work account emails that I deal with, because I keep them, like I said, to my phone so I can be flexible, and if I need to handle it on the fly, I can, was that there were weekends where Saturday and Sunday, specifically Sunday nights, one of my clients, not necessarily sending emails to me, but I'm CC'd on things and so I'm getting notifications. And one particular Sunday, it was like 15 emails in a row at like 7:30 at night. And I'm like trying to put the kids to bed and my phone's like, brr, 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 brr. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Friday at 5, anything work related, you are now turned off. So I will get you Monday at 7:30. I will turn them back on and I will deal with it then. Yeah. Cause it's just, I don't even want to think. I don't want that. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it pop up. I don't even want to think about anything happening. Yeah.
I am a bit too much of a nerd for my own good sometimes, and I have all of the focus options on my iPhone. So like Thursday at like 5 o'clock, this downtime option comes on where like I have a different home screen. I don't get any notifications from anything. Like,
that's
even
awesome.
if my friends text me, like, it doesn't show the little number bubble on the text messages.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, on the weekend, if I'm not working and I have it turned off because I have shoots and stuff, so I need to be able to communicate. If I actually have time off, then I'm probably with my family, so I don't need to know when my family is messaging me. And I'm sorry, but there are not photography emergencies.
What if it's 6:30 on a Friday night and they need an after dinner photo?
That was hilarious. I can't. Yeah. There is no such thing as a photography emergency.
No, there is not.
To say. So, I just don't. They all turn off, and then I don't get any sounds, any pop-ups, anything.
That's awesome. I love that.
Flippin' fantastic.
It makes a huge difference to be able to disconnect like that.
Another thing is to not answer the phone. And I already have that one down, obviously. But this, because I hate answering the phone anyway. Yeah, I don't like answering the phone. But this actually comes from my friend Kendra Shank, who is a photographer in the Owen Sound area. She is a pet photographer. She's very good. So go look at her Instagram because it's super cute. So she would tell me previously, you know, like we used to meet at a cafe here Monday mornings, and we'd just sit there and we'd work at the same time in the same place. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day she showed up and she was like, I didn't get anything done before I got here because I had a client call me. And then like 3 hours later, I'm like still dealing with this issue that the client called me about. And I'm like, don't answer the phone. You do not, like, you're not on call to people. Unless you are like a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, like you're not on call to people.
Job. Yeah.
Yeah. You did not sign up for that. Like, let yourself not be on call and just focus on your own stuff. You don't have to answer the phone and turn your whole day upside down because.
And so the way my sister builds it into her contracts is that if you want her to be on call, you pay a premium for that. If you desperately have a branding emergency, which that generally also doesn't happen, then there is a premium for that now she's got to drop what she's doing on a Friday night and get this to you in 4 hours. And it's like, I think it's like triple her rate. But like, if you want it, then you're going to account for everything else that she has cleared off of her schedule to do that for you. And she's still going to say, I reserve the right to say a no.
No. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to maybe put that in my contract.
Yeah. That's great.
Like if you're booking less than 5 days out.
Yeah. Because it's a big rush for you to prep everything and account for time that you hadn't already planned for, right?
Yeah. Well, and I might be planning family time, for goodness sake.
Yeah. Then now you're canceling.
Yeah, for sure. That's excellent. I like that. Good for your sister. Does she get very many branding emergencies?
More, you know what? More than I would have expected. And it's more, it's not necessarily a branding emergency, it's people just being impatient. Well, I want it now, and I didn't get my stuff to you until 2 seconds ago, and I wanted it this morning. So it's more like that kind of stuff.
If they're paying for it,
you can pay for it. Exactly. Why not?
Well, good for her. I was going to say, it's a lot of that, like the social media stuff. Like, are people sending her like emergency social media stuff or specifically branding?
it'll be specifically, she says it's like specifically branding.
Wow.
Or she'll have, we had a new thought, and so that design that you packaged for us, we're not gonna go we want to change this one thing, so we have to repackage every single thing that you did. She's like, great, well, that's an extra 4 hours, so yeah.
Oh well.
Craziness. Yeah, some people.
Speaking of business, do you want to share your download again?
Yeah. So our download is essential tips for the entrepreneur. So it's right when you go to theavasolution.com. It's a nice pop-up on our homepage. And it talks about our tried and true tips and tricks for making the most of growing and scaling your business and keeping yourself organized.
Yep. Organization, something that will probably help you with the whole work-life balance thing.
Yes, it sure does.
Your family will thank you later.
They will.
And we will put the link to that in the show notes as well, which is theavasolution.com. All right. The next thing is, and this is going to sound so general given what we're talking about. So the next thing is to prioritize family time over work. And by that, I mean, when you are done work, leave your work at work. In your case, close the door. I don't have so much of a problem with this when I'm at home where my office is, because I don't have to close the door, because that room is far enough away from the fridge that I don't have to worry about, accidentally ending up in there doing work. Because I would rather be closer to the fridge. But anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're spending time with your family, don't be like, oh my God, I need to work on this thing. What is the book called? Getting Stuff Done. Is that it?
Don't know.
You might not. I'm going to look up that book and put it in the show notes. What I understand about it is this idea of, okay, you're going to have all of these like thoughts swirling around in your head of all of these emergency things that you have to take care of. And instead of going and dealing with them, something I am guilty of, rather than going and dealing with that thing, like you're working on something, something else pops into your head, rather than abandoning the thing you're already working on and going and working on something else, write it down somewhere. Mm-hmm. So have like a brain dump list somewhere.
Yep.
In your reminders, in your notepad, whatever, and just write it down.
Yep.
And then continue on with what you're working on. And for goodness sake, do that when you are spending time with your family. Have like 100%. A notepad or something on the counter where you write down all the stuff you have to deal with. Like, oh, I forgot to send this email. Write it down. You haven't forgotten about it. Write down an action item. Yeah. I think that was an important thing in the book. Like, don't write down like just a couple of words because maybe you won't understand what you were trying to say earlier. Write down, do this for this or whatever.
Yeah.
And then deal with it tomorrow when you're working, and don't work on stuff outside of work hours. I have another tip. I think you might like it.
Okay.
Get a virtual assistant.
Yay!
Yeah. Personally, I have found it incredibly effective.
Yay. Awesome.
Because I don't have to make phone calls that I don't want to make. Makes me look a heck of a lot more professional when I can get back to a voicemail a lot quicker because I'm not avoiding it. You're just doing it for me. You can answer emails a lot quicker for me. You're able to like take in all of these communications and just be like, here's a bunch of questions. Can you answer them? And then I will take care of it. Yeah, and that's actually one of the recommendations in the 4-hour work week as well, is to hire help for various things to like cut down on the amount of time that you're spending doing work that you don't necessarily need to do. And that's a recommendation for people who work for other people in offices and stuff. Like,
yeah,
I mean, could you like, do you not have to deal with the like privacy stuff so much in your job? Is there stuff that you could offload on someone else? Would it be worth it to you to spend a little bit of money to get that much more time back? Yep. Interesting idea.
100%.
Learn what times you are most productive and then work during those times instead of trying to make yourself work during a time that you are not productive. Like me,
after
for example.
Lunch.
Yes. I am very productive in the morning. I am not productive the middle of the day at all. So I try to avoid working during that time. What about you? When are you most productive?
I get most of my stuff done in the morning, and I don't know if it's like that's when I have high energy or if that's like this is when I have alone time while the kids are still sleeping. I tend to get up early before they wake up so I can like bang out a ton of stuff, and then I'm also most productive late evening. So I carve out time in the evening where I schedule my own emails or my emails for other clients that I have to send out, so I don't have to do that like midday drop what I'm doing, go into the computer and send an email. They're already prepped, written, drafted, ready to go, and I just set it to send out at whatever time. So with a couple of my clients, I do similarly for you. I send you like at the beginning of the day your rundown of like what tasks are going on, any emails that need to be tended to in your schedule. Another one of my clients, I do that about an hour earlier, so I schedule that so I don't have to be at the exact time typing away on it. So I do that a lot. And then mid-afternoon is also a high productivity time for me. And again, probably necessity because that's when my kids are tired. So I generally time block myself for work around their schedule. So before they wake up, mid-morning, after lunch, and then if I have anything extra to catch up on, it's usually in the evenings after bath and bedtime, which works out really well. And then I know that like all my clients kind of have this understanding that while I'm working on your stuff throughout the day, I'm also not on call 100% of the time. So you can message me and I will get back to you same day for sure, as long as you're within my regular business hours. But you have to account for the fact that there might be up to an hour or so where I don't respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have questions now.
Okay.
I love scheduling emails. I love it because
Yes.
I put in my email signatures like this email inbox is only monitored Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday between these times. So I try not to send out emails outside of those times. Otherwise, people don't believe the email signature and they'll start expecting me to email them at any time of the day, any day of the week. So I love scheduling emails. What do you use for scheduling emails for those people who are like, oh my God, I can schedule emails? Is it just Gmail or?
Yeah, so I have one client I work with in Gmail, similar to with yourself. And then my other two clients operate in Outlook. So there's the schedule in Gmail and send later is the feature in Outlook. So I just do it right through there because they don't have separate CRMs that they work in. So I just set them all up. So they just sit in my drafts basically with a little note that they've been scheduled and then they're ready to go.
Cool. Yeah,
which
that's
is
a good one.
nice.
Mm-hmm. And that would have saved the whole my mother's boss sending emails in the middle of the night, which, if you ask me, does not look super professional.
No, and drafts has always been there. Like you can write your email and leave it, and then when you get to the office, take 5 minutes and click send. Like that's also an option.
It's a good point. Very good point.
Not everyone thinks about that.
Thinks to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the next item is to say no more often. And if you read Essentialism, you will learn a little bit about saying no to things, which I think is the best thing ever. I've been saying no to more stuff recently.
Yep.
And it's starting to feel a lot more comfortable. And I'm feeling good about it. I like saying no.
Good. It's like becomes strangely empowering. Like if you go from saying yes to everything and then start putting that boundary on like, no, I'm not available, end of sentence. Or no, I'm not going to do that, end of sentence. Like it becomes, it was very hard for me at first. Like immediate, complete anxiety. Like, oh, now they're going to hate me. Now I'm going to lose work. Now like blah, 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 blah. Right. And now it's like, you know what? Like, and this comes back to like, what is more important? Is it important that I am up until 3:00 in the morning completing this project that really I could have asked? Like, yes, I can do that, but I can't have that done until mid next week. It's not going to be done by 7:00 in the morning when you've given me 2 hours notice. And that, like in my personal life too, sorry, you know what? We are not going to be able to make that event because we have not had proper time together as a family in 4 weeks. So we're going to focus on our family this weekend. Like those are all things that now, or it's just so much better for me and for my family to be able to put that out there. Like, that's not going to work. Thanks so much. No.
Well, I know a lot of people get nervous, especially in business, saying no to things because, like you said, like you think, oh, I'm going to lose work. Like, here's the thing. When you start saying no to things that you don't want to do, all of a sudden you have more time to say yes to the things that you do want to do.
Exactly.
But if you say yes first to the thing you don't want to do, then you're not going to have time for the stuff that you do want to do. I don't even know if I said that properly. There was a lot of do's.
I know what you meant.
A little bit too much.
I followed.
So get comfortable with saying no to things because, it feels good. And you know what? People talk about being a people pleaser as if that's like something to be really proud about. And I'm not ripping on you at all because here's the difference between you and me. You might think that you're a people pleaser and you do everything super nicely. I am not a people pleaser, except that people would ask me to do things for them and I would do it, but I'd be bitchy about it the whole time. So, yep. Didn't enjoy it at all.
Fair
Why
enough.
am I doing it then?
Nope.
Yep.
And then nobody's happy. If I'm not happy, nobody's going to enjoy this. Don't ask me anymore.
All right. And then the last thing on my list is to go away, in quotation marks, with your family more often. So by that, I mean, okay, so you work 80 hours a week and can't afford to go on a vacation. So don't go on a vacation, but tell everyone that you are going on a vacation. And then they can just not bother you for 2 weeks while you actually spend time with your family. Stay home. Do movie nights. the whole staycation thing is kind of fantastic. Turn all your
love
devices
it.
off and pretend like you're in
Yeah.
another country and you don't have cell service.
Perfect. I love that.
Did you have any particular tips outside of these random things that I have put together?
I am a huge fan of to-do lists. I have to-do lists for work and I have a to-do list for personal. Or my personal to-do list sits in my kitchen command center on our whiteboard, and I have one and my husband has one. So if something happens during the day and it's like an Axel chore, I'm like, okay, you need to do this. It has like, this is like done by the end of like the week. Like by Sunday night, this needs to be done. And it can be little things. Like I'll be like, okay, garbage is almost full. Next time I go outside, take out the garbage. Or it'll be like, you know, vinegar rinse in the coffee pot. Like things like that, that are menial details that it's okay. As I'm washing dishes, remember to also do that thing. And then it'll be bigger ticket items like clean out the garage and cut the grass and like things that we've got to carve out specific time to get done. And then I have my business ones. So if something pops up, like you mentioned, like I'm in the middle of, say, working on something for one client and I see an email come through for another client with a task request, I can flip over to that client's notebook and make myself the note, okay, work on XYZ for whoever. And then I know that when I go to their client time, I can work on that. So that definitely keeps me organized. It keeps everything, it can get a little swirly up there some days. So it keeps everything on the forefront and right in front of my face, which is nice. And that's been very helpful for me on making sure I don't let anything slip through the cracks. And then when it comes to the prioritizing and priority management, that's something that my husband and I sit down on a regular basis, not necessarily like a scheduled basis, but often if we feel like we're sliding or getting out of touch with what we want to happen, we sit down and we like pull out the calendar and we're like, okay, what are we going to do? What's going on? What do we have on the go? And we make sure that we're adjusting so that we're doing the things that we want to do. We're consciously putting that effort in to have that time. At the beginning of the summer, I was like, I want for us to do more day trips. I want us to have more time as a family doing things that aren't just like going to the park. So we sat down with the calendar and we put all the other extended family events that we had, birthday parties and anniversaries and yada, yada, yada. And we're like, okay, this weekend is free. We're going to the Toronto Zoo. Okay, this day is free. We're going to go to the aquarium. Okay, this weekend's free. We're going to go to Rounds Ranch. And we like made like blocked everything in, and then we've left some weekends or days, and then we're okay, we'll see what happens, and maybe we'll call up some friends and go do a big bushwalk or something, or whatever the case may be. So that's what
And I've been seeing some of those day trips in your
yes.
Facebook.
Fun.
That's awesome. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think people do need to plan ahead a little bit more.
Because I find like otherwise the weekend will come and we'll be like, oh, what a week. We're tired. And then we don't do anything. And we've got small kids. So I need to know when I'm going grocery shopping that I buy snacks for picnics or snacks for the car, or that I make sure that all the like the specific water bottles are clean and the lawn, like there's things, steps that need to be taken in order for us to go on these big day trips. And if I don't know that, it's not a last minute thing with kids this little that nap and need bottles and potty breaks and everything else. So lots of planning. It's my big thing. Plan.
Speaking of planning,
Yes.
if you haven't already, check out my digital day planner in my Etsy shop. I'll put a link into the show notes, and you can get 20% off with the code PeopleCast, PPLCAST. And the 2023 and 2024 digital planner is already up, so you can put it on your e-reader, notebook, in your iPad, like just fill it out on your computer.
Awesome.
And you can use that to get a little bit more organized, think ahead, and plan. What a great
Perfect.
idea, eh?
That is a great idea.
I have just 3 books that we've already mentioned in the show, some of it, that I would like to share. Do you happen to have any books, or would you like to think about books? This is just the nerdy type of stuff that I like doing, so...
Go for it. I don't have it off the top of my head.
So essentialism, obviously, link will be in the show notes. Really about focusing on what is most important to you and not getting bogged down with all the other stuff. The 4-hour work week, you should probably read that one or listen to it or however you want to consume that book if you are interested at all in reducing the amount of work that you do in the week, because that's the entire premise of the book. It walks you through, you know, working less at your job, at your full-time job, maybe starting a side hustle, and then exiting your job without anyone ever really noticing.
Perfect.
And then the one other book that I wanted to add to the list is This Is Day One by Drew Dudley, a friend of mine. He is a leadership speaker. I highly recommend you look up his TED Talk on lollipop moments. Maybe I will put that into the show notes as well. It's fantastic, but This Is Day One is all about becoming the leader that you want to be. And he starts out with really drilling down on what your personal values are. So if you're thinking about how do I want to live my life? What would I do if I didn't work? And you can't think about anything, this might be a good place to start, because he gives some practical advice on you're going to walk through life for the next week doing this and that, and write down the things that you notice that are important to you and all of that stuff. So yeah, have a read of that book. Link will be in the show notes. Show notes.
Awesome.
Show notes. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the conversation about family and priority management? Priority being singular.
Yes, the one priority, that I love that, because it's the priority list usually, right? Like,
yeah.
The 10 to 15 things that matter most. That's a lot of things. I don't even know if I like that many things.
No.
So.
Oh my goodness. In the book, in the Essentialism book, he talks about how he'd be working with businesses and he'd be like, okay, we need to figure out what our priority is. And they would have like a list of 15, right? And he'd be like, no, one. What is your number one priority as an organization? And they're like, well, all of these things. You're like,
no. Yeah. Got pick one. Yeah, I love that.
Do you have a ridiculously happy moment for us?
I do. And it's not about my kids this time. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Last night I had some sushi for the first time in a long time, and it was delicious. It was so fresh, like almost falling apart fresh. And
oh my goodness.
We ordered takeout when I was in Barrie at my mom's. So it was like the rolls were huge, the pieces were ginormous, and it was just like, it was the best. It was delicious.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. I was going to say, where in the heck did you get sushi? And I forgot
in
that
Midland.
You were in Barrie.
I was in Barrie. Actually, there is a place now in Midland that will do it. There's a Korean restaurant, Minji's, and they now strictly do Asian food because they used to do a little bit of everything. And they now offer sushi, and it is really, really good. Like, surprisingly good, because MC Sushi, when it was here, was not... That was bad. That was really bad. But this place is very good. But yeah, no, I was in Barrie.
That's excellent. I love sushi, and now I'm hungry. Okay.
Sorry. Whoops.
So my ridiculously happy moment is also not about your kids. A little bit of follow-up to me running into my cousin. And so as I mentioned, his friend was like, are you two related? And so when we were texting after I ran into him, he thought it was hilarious, just hysterical, that his friend did not believe that we were related. I
love that.
So the next day, after we've finished playing and everything, I'm walking back to my car and I'm looking into the beer gardens to see if I can spot his light blue jersey, because I'm like, oh, I'll go say bye. So I'm walking. I see the light blue jerseys. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I look up like slightly, and sitting at the same bench are a couple of my friends frantically waving at me. So I was like, okay. So I go in, and literally they were just on opposite sides of this bench. So I'm like, I'm just going to stand in between both of you, and I'm going to talk to everyone.
Get to see everybody. That's awesome.
So at one point, my cousin, he was with two of his teammates, and I sort of lean into him. I'm like, So who was it who didn't believe that we were related? And before he could say anything, one of his friends goes, "You're related?" And he's just like, "No way." I'm like,
That is so
why?
funny.
Why is this so unbelievable? And he says, are you ready for this? He says, I don't know if I can say this with a straight face. "You're just so much better looking than he is." And I was just like, oh my goodness. Thank you.
I know.
And also my poor cousin.
Aw, that's so funny.
Yeah, that was nice.
It's always a good sign.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Nikki?
We are on Instagram and Facebook at The Ava Solution and on the web at theavasolution.com.
Excellent.
Nice and easy.
And I'm Sophia Lemon, and I photograph ridiculously happy people. And you can find me on Instagram at ridiculously happy people, and that's with a PPL, on Facebook and on Pinterest and at sophialemon.com. And we also invite you to join our Facebook community at Ridiculously Happy People. And again, that is PPL. And if you would like to share your ridiculously happy moment with us, you can share it with us on social media, watch for the prompts, or you can go to happyp.pl/moment, and you can record it there and we'll play it on the show. Thank you for making time to listen to this episode. We hope you feel inspired to live a little more kindly, more confidently, and more ridiculously happy. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review in your podcast app of choice. Your feedback is so important in helping us spread this ridiculously happy movement. And remember that happiness is contagious. Who do you know who always seems to be super busy and maybe not spending enough time with their family because they're too busy working? Share this show with them and help them slow down for a few moments, figure out their priorities. You can find the shareable links in the show notes. And thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.